In recent years, board games have made a comeback, and this is maybe because people are craving more of an interactive gaming experience. Also, as people, there's something quite intimate and special to be able to touch and feel the pieces of the game we're playing. What's worth noting about the new generation of games is how they balance complexity with playability in a way that makes many of them modern-day gaming classics. I'm Mike with List 25, and here's the list of board games, old and new, quirky and normal, that you should actually play.
25.
Trouble. This futuristic-looking game is quite dull and repetitive, as you simply move around the board trying to get your colored pieces to your home base safely. But it has one redeeming feature that means everyone should at least play this game once. That's the coolest dice rolling device ever, the Pop-O-Matic. In the center of the board is a see-through plastic dome containing two six-sided dice. Now, if you push the dome downwards, there's an instant popping sound as the dice jump up and ricochet off the inside of the dome. This then creates a random number. This dice rolling gimmick is hypnotic, and you just want to do it continually. Who cares about the actual game itself?
24.
Operation. What can be more weird than to give your kid a toy that encourages them to carry out surgical operations without any kind of formal training? Well, thankfully kids don't seem to mimic this in real life by trying it out on their classmates. The game is actually quite simple, but ingenious. You earn cash in the game by carrying out operations on a patient, like removing fictitious plastic items like broken hearts or funny bones. You do this with a pair of metal tweezers through an opening that's not much bigger than the items. If the tweezers touch the side of the opening, it closes an electric circuit and the patient's nose lights up red and you lose your turn. It's great family fun for all ages and guaranteed to make you chuckle.
23.
Scrabble. This spelling board game allows you to score points from words made up of letters you have randomly picked. It's so popular that over 150 million sets have been sold since it was first brought out over 80 years ago. It would be very weird if you never played this before, because it's available in over 120 countries, and I reckon that about half of British and 1/3 of American homes have a Scrabble set.
22.
Formula One racing game. In a day and age of high definition and incredibly realistic video games, why would anyone consider racing on a physical playing board? Well, this car racing game, which is over half a century old, has stood the test of time and still offers a lot of fun and excitement. With the added bonus that it takes just a few minutes to read and learn the rules, it allows you to do all the thrilling things in racing, like speeding along, overtaking, cornering tightly, and even crashing. One of the nice things about the game is it relies on only dice rolls at key moments. The rest of the time, it's your decisions and strategy that dictates how well you play the race.
21.
Top Trump Card Game. This game is very easy to learn and play. You start by dividing up the pack among the players. Each card has a unique set of values, and you then compete against one another to try and win your opponent's cards. Now, with so many special editions of the game, like superheroes, jet fighters, footballers, etc., you're bound to find one that appeals to you. Though some of these editions are downright weird. For instance, Waddington's brought out in 2018 the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle commemorative wedding pack. This featured members of the royal family and some of the more prominent wedding guests. There's something very bizarre about having the late Princess Diana card competing against Prince William's baby son, Prince Louis of Cambridge.
20.
Axis and Allies 1942. This very highly rated board game allows you to refight the whole of World War II. Now, at first glance, this may seem like a game only for diehard wargamers, with its hefty 40-page rulebook, along with hundreds of counters and truly very large game board of the entire world. But surprisingly, it's both interesting and engrossing. And once the game mechanics are mastered, it's quite easy to play. And don't believe it when the manufacturer says the game takes just 2 to 3 hours, as you'll be lucky to get the game board and pieces set up in under an hour. And that's before you even started playing the actual game.
19.
Go. Any game that has billions of combinations of possible moves and is 2,500 years old is intriguing to say the least. This game is highly popular in the Far East, and the basic concept of the game is very simple. You have a board made up of 19 by 19 squares. By various strategies and tactics, you try to make your color, black or white, dominate on the board. Some players of Go believe rather philosophically that the game is a spiritual journey that reflects a person's deep-rooted desire for self-improvement. So, in essence, it's a battle of the individual versus the self, rather than another player.
18.
Dungeon. Have you ever fancied being a warrior, wizard, holy cleric, or thief in a world of sword and sorcery, then setting off and competing with your friends as you explore a sinister dungeon maze full of treasure while fending off horrible and gruesome monsters? Well, then this is definitely the game for you. It's simple and fun, each game being very different from the last. And the nice thing is, it's a relatively inexpensive game, costing under $20.
17.
The Game of Life. This charming board game mirrors real life and all the challenges that lay ahead of you, like going to college, getting married, and having children. So, in approximately 60 minutes, you can live a whole lifetime. The object of the game is to be the first to achieve 6 life goals. The game is unusual as it uses a number spinning dial rather than dice. Later, there were several special themed editions, like one based on Star Wars, another on My Little Pony, but the game mechanics were pretty much the same.
16.
Chess. If you've never learned chess, it can seem very daunting. I get that. There are 6 very different types of pieces on each side with various quirky abilities, like bishops can move diagonally, while knights can do a funny little 2 square forward and 1 square to the side, as well as special moves like castling, the quirky kind of swapping in certain pieces, and checkmate, which is how you trap the opponent's king in order to win. Chess is complicated, intimidating, and hard to master, but ultimately, if you stick with it, you'll find it a deep and rewarding experience. I was on the chess club in middle school and high school.
15.
Atmosphere. When this game came out 30 years ago, its idea of using a pre-recorded VHS tape to guide the gameplay was seen as truly revolutionary. The object of the game was for the players to collect 6 keys within 60 minutes, while at random intervals, a sinister gatekeeper on the video cassette interrupts them in order to punish or reward the players. It's both spooky and chilling at times. The game quickly became very popular and sold 2 million copies in its first 2 years, but by 1995, the sales had plummeted and production of the game ceased. Nevertheless, it's still a guilty pleasure and deserves to be played, presuming that you still own a VHS player.
14.
Batman: Gotham City Chronicles. What could be more weird than purchasing a huge and expensive game knowing it has neither been released nor has anyone played it yet? Well, this Kickstarter game looks, feels, and seems awesome with such attention to detail. The board cards and figures are breathtaking, as is the price. The basic game is around $120, with the premium pack going for an eye-watering $300-ish. Definitely a leap of faith, but it has all the signs of being a classic, though admittedly an expensive one at that.
13.
Risk. A true classic, and a very popular strategy game where players fight to conquer the world by defeating your enemies. What's weird about this one is how addictive the game truly is. It was first launched over 60 years ago, and since then there's been a whole array of interesting and challenging special editions that have been brought out. What's nice about these further editions is that the basic game mechanic is unchanged, but each new version has something unique about it that keeps the gaming experience fresh and challenging. So there's a version for everyone's taste, like Star Wars, The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, and Assassin's Creed, to name a few.
12.
Backgammon. Backgammon is a game most people have heard of, but never played. This classic game of counters and dice has been around since 3000 BCE, and is all about getting your pieces off the board while making it difficult for your opponent to do the same. The art is to create strategies at various times that'll work with the element of luck that the dice bring to the game. It's easy to learn and can normally be played in under half an hour. This makes it an engrossing but relatively quick game to play.
11.
Ticket to Ride. What could sound more boring than a game about trains? Sorry, Juan. But you would be so very wrong. Though you've probably never heard of this award-winning game, it has a hardcore, almost cult-like following. It's about setting up railway networks across America, and it uses no dice, relying instead on destination cards. To date, there have been 7 additional expansion maps of various parts of the world, like Japan, and if you're not careful, you will become totally addicted to this geekiest of games.
10.
Twister. In 2015, this wacky and fun game was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame. It has probably the largest game board of any standard board game, 67 inches by 55 inches, as well as the largest playing pieces too, you and your friends. This is a game of great physical skill and flexibility. A large plastic mat is laid on the floor and has 6 rows of large different colored circles on it, consisting of red, blue, green, and yellow. Then a referee will use a spinner board to tell each player which color circle to put their arm or leg on, and whether it's the left one or the right one. This continues, and a player is eliminated if their elbow touches the ground or if they fall over. The last person remaining on the mat is the winner. People will end up in the oddest positions in order to try and stay in the game.
9.
Catan. A hugely popular game from Germany that sold well over 20 million copies. Players set up competing colonies on an island on a game board consisting of hexes, 6 sides locked together. It's very much a game about skill and strategy rather than luck. So why not simply play one of the countless similar games that are online? Well, the game is a quality product that's beautifully designed and a joy to play. There are a number of expansion kits, so there's plenty to keep you coming back and playing this game again and again.
8.
Blockus. Blockus can be learned almost right away. It's really that simple. Yet, it's so thought-provoking and seen as so educational that it won the Mensa Select and Teacher's Choice Awards. Each player is assigned a color and gets 21 Tetris-style shapes of that color. Then, the object of the game is to try to get rid of as many pieces as possible until you can't go anymore. There's no dice rolling involved, and there is a catch. Each time you lay down a shape, it must touch at least one other of the same color, but only at the corner. This makes the game much more tricky, and at times, delightfully frustrating.
7.
Mousetrap. Only when you see it in person do you really appreciate how totally and utterly mad this game truly is. You go about the board as mice, all helping to build an 80-piece giant mousetrap that you then try to avoid being captured by. The whole game is totally crazy, and it's hilarious that once built, the mousetrap itself is highly temperamental, as it often malfunctions when it's set off due to its many tricky and awkward parts. So a lot of the fun is trying to work out where y'all went wrong in assembling your complex and highly eccentric mousetrap. It's always the rubber band. It's always trying to set up the rubber band. Sometimes the metal ball, because it doesn't stay in the bucket.
6.
Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is a fantasy American football board game, and it's not for the faint of heart. It features teams made up of mythical races like elves, dwarves, and orcs, as well as the undead and humans. Then the teams will battle it out in order to try and score goals against each other. The game has been updated several times over the years with minor tweaks and add-ons. It's exciting, brutal, and an attractive looking game, but not really suitable for young children.
5.
Pandemic. This game is unusual as it's a cooperative game where the players work together and not against each other. The game begins with 4 potentially deadly diseases breaking out in different regions of the world. Each player can choose to be one of 7 possible specialists: dispatcher, medic, scientist, researcher, operations expert, contingency planner, or quarantine specialist. Then, by the players working together, they try to avert a global pandemic and, well, given the recent outbreak of coronavirus, it feels so chillingly relevant.
4.
PowerGrid. I bet you never considered running a power generating company and then competing against other companies to supply electricity to various cities. Well, this game allows you to rectify that oversight in a surprisingly interesting and challenging way. And during the game, the challenge is to make your power stations as efficient as possible while not overspending as you do so. The game is highly rated, with many expansion packs covering a wide variety of countries.
3.
Terraforming Mars. Rated a respectable 8.4 out of 10 on a leading games review site, this game allows you to do what NASA can only dream of, and colonize the planet Mars by terraforming its surface. The game looks stunning, and has a medium complexity rating. The main aim of the game is to raise the oxygen, temperature, and water levels of the planet, which the players earn victory points for doing so. And if terraforming Mars isn't enough for you, a recent expansion kit allows you to try and colonize Venus as well.
2.
Gloom Haven. This style of tile and card game is a fairly recent innovation, where the traditional game board is replaced by a more adaptable and flexible playing surface consisting of interlocking pieces. It's set in a sword and sorcery type world, and is a stunningly designed game with the basic set containing 95 scenarios, 17 playable classes, and more than 1,500 cards in a box that weighs a staggering 22 pounds, or 10 kilograms. So not surprisingly, this game isn't cheap, normally retailing for over 100 pounds, or, you know what, 120 bucks. It's also one of the most highest rated games of all time.
1.
Shuggie. There are several versions of 3-dimensional chess using 2 or more boards, but if you want true madness, there's an ancient Japanese chess-like game called Shuggie that uses a staggering 9 boards. But to complicate matters further, there are numerous versions of this game, with a different number of boards, board sizes, rules, moves, and pieces, including one called the Drunken Elephant. This game is so weird that it's enough to drive you to the edge of insanity. But if mastered, it's said to offer a profound experience and a sense of achievement like no other game. So, what's your favorite board game? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer to us at List25, or to me personally at Michael B. Estrin. And if you like this video, check out the ones in this playlist here.